The hammer slipped from Elena Rivera's frozen fingers and hit the ground the same moment her knees did. 6 months pregnant, alone on 40 acres of Montana dirt, she'd been nailing boards since dawn. The last board. The one that would make this pile of scavenged wood something that might keep her and her baby alive through winter. That's when she heard it. Hoofbeats. Coming fast. She grabbed the hammer like a weapon, turned, and saw something that made no sense. A wild buckskin mare, standing 20 feet away, staring at her like she'd been sent. Behind the horse, through the dust, a man sat silent in his saddle. Elena raised the hammer higher. "Get off my land!" Before we go further, if you want to see how a pregnant woman fighting for survival and a broken cowboy find something neither one was looking for, hit that subscribe button. Stay with me until the very end of this story. And drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Now let's get back to Elena. Elena had stopped crying 3 weeks ago. Crying took water, and water was for drinking and mixing the clay that chinked the gaps between logs. Crying took energy, and energy was for swinging the axe that split the wood, that kept the fire burning, that kept her alive. She'd learned that fast. "One more board," she whispered, her breath clouding in the October air. "Just one more, and the north wall is done." Her hands shook as she positioned the plank. Not from cold, though God knew it was cold, but from exhaustion that had settled into her bones like sediment. The baby kicked hard against her ribs, and she pressed a palm to the swell of her belly. "I know," she said quietly. "I'm tired too." The sound of her own voice in the emptiness had stopped feeling strange. Out here, 40 miles from the nearest town, talking to yourself or talking to silence amounted to the same thing. She raised the hammer, brought it down. The nail bent. "Damn it!" She pried it out, fingers clumsy in the cold, started again. This time the nail went true, and she felt a grim satisfaction that was becoming familiar. The satisfaction of things that don't break when you expect them to. That's when she heard the hoofbeats. Elena spun, hammer gripped tight. The Montana prairie stretched empty in 3 directions, but from the east a cloud of dust was rising. Not a lot. 1 horse, maybe 2. Her heart kicked hard. Nobody came out here. That was the point. That was why she'd chosen land so remote, even the land office clerk had looked at her like she was insane. "Filing alone?" he'd asked, pen hovering over the claim form. "Yes." "Ma'am, you understand the requirements. Continuous occupation, permanent structure, proof of improvement within 6 months?" "I understand." His eyes had dropped to her belly, then back to her face. The judgment there was something she'd learned to ignore. The way you ignore a stone in your boot until you can sit down and shake it out. "It's your funeral," he'd muttered, and stamped the paper. Now someone was riding toward that funeral. Elena moved to the wagon, pulled out the rifle. It was old, her grandfather's, and she had 6 bullets. She'd been saving them for wolves, but a wolf on 2 legs was still a wolf. The rider came closer, resolved into a man on a bay horse, riding easy, like he had all the time in the world. Behind him, loose and unbridled, came another horse, a buckskin mare with a blaze like white fire down her face. Elena raised the rifle. "That's close enough." The man stopped, put his hands up, slow and deliberate. "Easy, ma'am, just passing through." "Then pass somewhere else." He studied her for a long moment. She could see his face now, weathered, somewhere in his 30s, with the kind of stillness that comes from spending more time with animals than people. His eyes flicked to her belly, then away, quick, like the sight hurt him. "You're building," he said. "That's what homesteading means." "Alone? You see anybody else?" The buckskin mare moved forward, past the man, stepping careful, like she was approaching something fragile. The man's eyes widened. "Duchess, no!" But the horse kept coming, stopped 10 feet from Elena, close enough that Elena could see the intelligence in her dark eyes. The mare lowered her head, breath steaming in the cold air, and made a sound low in her throat, not aggressive, almost concerned. Elena's hands tightened on the rifle. "What's wrong with your horse?" "She's not mine," the man said quietly. "She's wild. Been wild for 3 years. Nobody's gotten within 50 feet of her." "Then why?" "I don't know." Something in his voice caught. "She's never done this before." The mare took another step, then another. Close enough now that Elena could have touched her muzzle. The horse's eyes stayed locked on Elena's face, and for a crazy moment, Elena felt like she was being seen, really seen, for the first time since leaving San Antonio. "Hey, girl," Elena whispered, lowering the rifle an inch. "What do you want?" The mare blew out a long breath, then turned her head, deliberate, and looked back at the man. The man shifted in his saddle, uncomfortable. I should go." "Yeah," Elena said. "You should." But neither of them moved. The buckskin mare looked between them, then walked a slow circle around Elena, not threatening, almost protective, before returning to stand between Elena and the man, like a bridge neither one had asked for. "I'm Caleb Stone," the man said finally. "I work the line shack about 8 miles north of here." Elena said nothing. "You got a name?" "Yeah." A silence stretched out. Caleb's mouth twitched like he might have smiled in another life. "Gonna share it?" "Why?" "Because that mare seems to think we ought to know each other." Elena looked at the horse. The horse looked back, unblinking. Something in her chest loosened, just a fraction. "Elena Rivera." "Miss or Mrs.?" The question landed like a slap. Elena's jaw tightened. "Does it matter?" Caleb's expression didn't change, but something shifted behind his eyes. Recognition, maybe, of a wound he understood. "No, ma'am, it doesn't." He touched his hat brim, turned his horse. "Good luck with the building." "Wait!" He stopped. Elena hated herself for asking, but she asked anyway. "That mare, why is she following you?" Caleb looked at Duchess. When he spoke, his voice was rough. I think maybe she knows what it's like. To lose everything. To be alone." "She's a horse." "Yeah." He met Elena's eyes. "Sometimes horses got more sense than people." He rode away then, kicking up dust, not looking back. But the buckskin mare stayed, stood there in the space between Elena's half-finished cabin and the empty prairie, like she was deciding something. "Go on," Elena said. "Go with him." The mare didn't move. "I don't need you. I don't need anybody." The horse turned, finally, and followed Caleb's trail, but slow, reluctant, and every few steps she looked back. Elena worked until her hands bled. The north wall got finished, then the west. The roof frame went up crooked, came down, went up again. Every nail felt like a small war won. Every board that didn't crack felt like grace she didn't deserve. At dusk, she lit a fire inside the structure that wasn't quite a cabin yet, but was more than nothing. The smoke found its way through gaps in the roof, and the wind found its way through gaps in the walls, but the fire held. That was something. She boiled water for the beans she'd been rationing, ate them straight from the pot because washing dishes meant wasting water. The baby kicked, and she rubbed the spot gently. "I know this isn't what I promised you," she whispered. "I know I said you'd have a nursery with yellow curtains and a rocking chair that sang. But this is what I can give." 4 walls, a roof, a chance. The wind picked up, rattling the loose boards. Elena pulled her coat tighter, thought about San Antonio, about the house with 12 rooms and servants who knew her name, about her mother's face when Elena had refused to give up the name. "You must tell us who he is, Elena. We can make him marry you. We can fix this." "I can't." "You mean you won't?" "I mean he's married, Mama. He has 3 children. If I tell, I destroy his family." "And what about our family? What about our name?" Her mother's hand had been gentle when she touched Elena's face. Her voice had been gentle too. That made it worse. "Then you can't stay here, Mija. You understand? Your father, he'll never forgive this, and the town will eat us alive." "So you're choosing them over me?" "I'm choosing all of us. You're choosing him." "I'm choosing this baby." That had been the end of it. $200 in an envelope, her grandfather's rifle, a wagon and a mule her father couldn't meet her eyes to hand over. "Go north," her mother had said. "Disappear. Start over. Maybe someday." But they both knew someday was a lie people told to make goodbye easier. Elena lay down on the bedroll, every muscle screaming. Sleep came hard out here. The ground was unforgiving. The cold was relentless. And fear had a way of keeping you awake. Fear that the wind would take the roof. Fear that wolves would come. Fear that she'd wake up and find she'd lost the baby in the night. That all of this suffering would be for nothing. She was drifting, finally, when she heard it. A sound outside. Soft. Deliberate. Elena's eyes snapped open. She reached for the rifle in the dark, heart pounding. The sound came again. Not footsteps, hoofbeats. Slow. Close. She rose, moved to the gap that would someday hold a door, peered out into the moonlit clearing. The buckskin mare stood 30 feet away, head raised, looking directly at the cabin. Elena's breath caught. "What are you doing here?" The horse didn't spook, didn't run, just stood there like a sentry, like she'd been posted on watch. "You're supposed to be with him, with Caleb." The mare's ears flicked forward. She took 3 steps closer, then stopped. Stood there like she was waiting for something. Elena stepped outside, bare feet on cold earth, rifle loose in her hand. "I don't understand. What do you want from me?" The horse's eyes caught the moonlight, held it. And in that moment, Elena felt something she hadn't felt in months. Less alone. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay. You can stay tonight. But just tonight." The mare lowered her head, satisfied. Found a patch of grass near the wagon. Started grazing, peaceful as prayer. Elena went back inside, lay down, and for the first time since leaving San Antonio, she slept through the night without waking once. When dawn broke, the mare was still there. And so was a bundle of firewood, split clean and stacked neat, that definitely hadn't been there the night before. Elena stared at the firewood like it might disappear if she looked away. Split clean. Stacked perfect. Still smelling of fresh pine. She turned to the mare. "Did you do this?" The horse flicked her tail, kept grazing. "That's impossible. You're a horse." But the wood was real, and Elena was cold, and questioning miracles seemed like a luxury she couldn't afford. She carried the wood inside, built up the fire, and felt warmth chase the night chill from her bones. The mare stayed 3 more days. Each morning, Elena woke to find something new. A coil of rope, good quality, draped over the wagon wheel. A sack of oats that definitely wasn't hers. On the 3rd morning, a hunting knife with a bone handle stuck point down in a stump near her fire pit. Elena stood in the clearing at dawn, hands on her hips, and shouted at the empty prairie.
"I know you're out there! Show yourself!"
Nothing answered, but wind. The mare looked up from grazing, gave Elena a look that might have been amusement if horses could manage such things, and went back to eating. On the fourth day, Elena woke to voices. She grabbed the rifle, heart hammering, and crept to the door gap. 2 men on horseback sat at the edge of her property line. One was Caleb Stone. The other was older, heavyset, wearing a suit too fine for riding. "This is the claim?" the older man said, his voice carrying across the clearing. "Pathetic." "She's been here 3 weeks," Caleb said, his voice flat. "Building alone." "Building a shack. That won't meet improvement requirements." The man pulled out a leather notebook. "Silas Granger, Territorial Land Office. I'm documenting all disputed claims in this sector." "Nobody's disputing her claim." "I am." Granger smiled, and it was the kind of smile that made Elena's stomach turn. "Woman alone, visibly pregnant, minimal improvements. She'll abandon by spring. I'm filing preliminary notice." Elena stepped out, rifle in hand. "Like hell you are." Both men turned. Granger's smile widened. "Miss Rivera, I was hoping to meet you. This is my land. Legal claim. Filed proper." "For now." Granger dismounted, brushed dust from his jacket. "But the Homestead Act requires continuous occupation and permanent improvement within 6 months. You filed August 7th. That gives you until February 7th to prove you've met requirements. I'm meeting them. You've built 3 walls and half a roof. No door, no windows, no stable, no well." Granger walked closer, and Elena raised the rifle higher. He stopped, hands up in mock surrender. "Easy, Miss Rivera. I'm just stating facts. Facts a judge will care about when I contest this claim." "You can't just take someone's land." "I can if they fail to meet legal requirements." His eyes dropped to her belly. "And let's be honest. A woman in your condition, alone, in winter? You won't last until Christmas." Caleb swung down from his horse, his movement sharp. "That's enough, Granger."
"Is it? I'm doing her a favor, Stone. Better she knows now than wastes months out here playing pioneer."
Granger turned back to Elena. "I'll offer you $50 for the claim. Cash. Today. More than fair, considering you'll lose it anyway."
"Get off my property."
60 days, Miss Rivera. That's how long you have to finish this cabin, prove residency, and convince a judge you're capable of working this land." Granger mounted again, tipped his hat. "Clock's ticking." He rode away, leaving deep ruts in the mud near her fire pit. Territorial marks, deliberate and ugly. Elena lowered the rifle, hands shaking. Not from fear. From rage so pure it felt like swallowing fire. Caleb stood silent, watching Granger disappear over the ridge. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet. "He means it. He's been buying up failed claims all year."
"Then I won't fail."
"Elena, don't!" She turned on him. "Don't you dare tell me what I can't do. I've had enough of that to last a lifetime." "I wasn't going to." He met her eyes. "I was going to ask what you need." The words hit her like a physical thing. She opened her mouth, closed it. No one had asked her that in months. What do you need? Not, what's wrong with you? Not, how could you? Not, why won't you just? What do you need? I need... Her voice cracked. She steadied it. I need to finish this cabin before the real cold hits. I need a door that locks. I need a roof that doesn't leak. I need... She stopped, hating the weakness climbing up her throat. You need help, Caleb said. I can't pay you. Didn't ask you to. Then why would you... Elena stopped, because the buckskin mare had walked up to stand between them again, looking from Caleb to Elena like she was waiting for something. Caleb's jaw tightened. Because that damn horse won't leave me alone until I do." Despite everything, Elena almost laughed.
She won't leave me alone either. What's she want? I don't know. Maybe she thinks we're both too stupid to survive on our own. This time, Caleb did smile, small and brief. She might be right. They stood there in the cold morning, two strangers connected by a wild horse's stubborn insistence, and something shifted in the air between them. Not trust exactly, but the possibility of it. "I work until dark," Elena said. "I don't stop for meals. I don't make conversation. I just work." "Suits me fine." "And when this cabin's done, you leave. I don't need charity, and I don't need—" "I know what you don't need." Caleb's voice went rough. "Known plenty of women who don't need men. Usually, they're right." He walked to the cabin frame, studied the roof structure, put his hands on a beam, and tested its weight. "This northwest corner, it won't hold snow. You need another support post here." "I don't have another post." "There's deadfall oak 2 miles east. Good, dense wood." He looked at her. "I'll bring it tomorrow." "Why?" The question stopped him. He was quiet for a long moment, staring at something she couldn't see. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. "Because 3 years ago, my wife died in a cabin I built. And maybe if someone had helped me build it better, stronger." He cut himself off. "Tomorrow, first light." He mounted and rode away before Elena could respond. The mare stayed. Elena sat on the stump that held the knife, legs shaking with exhaustion and something else she couldn't name. The horse walked over, lowered her head until her muzzle was inches from Elena's face. "What?" Elena whispered. "What are you trying to tell me?" The mare's breath was warm. Her eyes were dark and steady and impossibly calm. She blew out once, soft, then turned and followed Caleb's trail, disappearing into the trees. Elena sat alone in the clearing she was trying to make a home, and for the first time, she let herself cry. Not the silent tears she'd shed at night, but the kind of crying that shook her whole body, that came from a place deeper than shame or fear. She cried until the baby kicked hard, insistent, reminding her that grief was a luxury neither of them could afford. Then she stood, wiped her face, and went back to work. Caleb showed up the next morning with 4 oak posts tied to his saddle and a whetstone for her dulled axe. He didn't speak, just nodded once and started measuring for the corner support. Elena worked beside him, matching his silence. The mare grazed nearby, watchful. They worked like that for 6 days straight. Caleb would arrive at dawn, they'd build until Elena's hands bled or her back gave out, then he'd leave without ceremony. No questions about her past, no judgment about her belly growing rounder each day, no expectations beyond the work itself. On the 7th day, Elena spoke first. "You said your wife died. In childbirth?" Caleb's hands stilled on the beam he was notching. "Yeah." "I'm sorry." "Me too." He went back to work, and Elena thought that would be the end of it. But then he said, "Her name was Sarah. The baby was a boy. Neither one made it past dawn." Elena's throat went tight. "How long ago?" 3 years, 2 months, 11 days. The precision of it broke her heart. "You count?" "Every single one." He set down his knife, rubbed his face with both hands. "I built that cabin myself. Thought I was doing right by her. But the walls were thin, the gaps too wide. She went into labor early, and the cold—" His voice splintered. "I couldn't keep her warm enough. Couldn't get to town for help fast enough. Couldn't do a goddamn thing but watch them both slip away." "That wasn't your fault." "Wasn't it?" He looked at her, and his eyes were haunted.
I was supposed to protect them. That's what a man does. He builds shelter. He keeps them safe. And I failed.
So now you're what? Punishing yourself by living alone in a lined shack? I'm making sure I don't fail anyone else. By helping me? By making sure this cabin doesn't kill you the way mine killed Sarah. The words hung between them, raw and terrible. Elena wanted to tell him it wasn't the same, that she was stronger, that she'd survive. But she looked at the half-finished walls around them and knew he was right to be afraid. "Teach me," she said instead. "Teach me how to build it right." Caleb studied her face for a long moment, then nodded. "Okay." That night, Elena rode the mule into town for supplies. She'd been putting it off, dreading the looks and whispers. But the nails were running low, and Granger's 60-day deadline was burning down like a fuse. The general store went silent when she walked in. Mrs. Patterson, the shopkeeper's wife, froze mid-sentence. 3 women at the counter turned to stare. Their eyes went straight to Elena's belly, then to her bare ring finger, and their faces hardened with judgment so familiar it barely stung anymore. "I need 20 pounds of nails," Elena said, setting coins on the counter. 3 hinges, canvas for chinking. Mrs. Patterson didn't move. "We don't serve your kind here." "My kind?" "Unwed mothers, women of loose character." Heat flooded Elena's face. "I have money, legal money, and this is a public store. My husband has the right to refuse service to anyone who might damage our reputation." Mrs. Patterson's smile was poison sweet. "Surely you understand, dear. A woman in your condition, alone, building God knows what out there. People talk. Let them." "Oh, we do." One of the other women leaned forward, eyes gleaming. "Is it true you're being helped by that stone man? The one who killed his own wife?" Elena's hands clenched. "He didn't kill anyone." "Didn't he? Poor Sarah Stone, dead in that cabin he built. And now here's another pregnant woman. And there he is again, building another cabin." The woman's voice dripped false concern. "I'd be careful, dear. History has a way of repeating." Elena grabbed her coins, turned for the door. Behind her, she heard Mrs. Patterson say, 60 days until you're gone, Miss Rivera. We're all counting." She made it to the mule before the shaking started. Not fear this time, pure rage. "Need something?" Elena spun. Caleb stood 10 feet away, hands in his pockets, face unreadable. Behind him, Duchess waited, patient as stone. "What are you doing here?" "Same as you. Supplies." He looked past her to the store. "They give you trouble?" "Nothing I can't handle." "That's not what I asked." Elena's control cracked. "They said you killed your wife, that I'm next." Something moved behind Caleb's eyes. Pain so sharp Elena almost looked away. But he just nodded. "They've been saying that for 3 years. Doesn't make it true." "Did you love her?" The question came out before Elena could stop it. Caleb went very still. "More than breathing," he said finally. "And when she died, I wanted to follow. The only thing that stopped me was knowing she'd be ashamed of me for giving up." He met Elena's eyes. "So I didn't give up. I just stopped living. Went through the motions. Until a wild horse decided I had something left to do." Duchess made a soft sound, like agreement, walked up to Elena and bumped her shoulder with her nose, gentle but insistent. Elena reached up, fingers trembling, and touched the mare's face for the first time. The horse leaned into it, warm and solid and real. "She brought you to me," Elena whispered. "Why?" "Maybe she knows something we don't." Caleb shifted, uncomfortable. "Or maybe we're both just lonely enough to believe a horse has better sense than we do."
A door slammed.
Elena looked up to see Silas Granger standing on the store's porch, watching them with an expression that made her skin crawl.
53 days, Miss Rivera, he called. Better work fast. He went inside, leaving his threat hanging in the cold air. Caleb's jaw tightened. Let's go. I know a trading post 40 miles west. They don't ask questions.
That's a day's ride.
You got somewhere better to be? Elena thought about her half-finished cabin, Granger's deadline, the women's whispers poisoning the air. She thought about being alone again, the way she'd been alone since leaving San Antonio, carrying fear like stones in her pockets. Then she looked at Caleb, this broken man with grief in his eyes and kindness in his hands, and at Duchess, this impossible horse who'd somehow decided they both deserved saving.
No, she said. I guess I don't. They rode west together as the sun climbed high, 3 souls moving towards something none of them could name yet, but all of them needed more than air. Behind them, in the town that had already written them off, Granger watched through the store window and smiled. The trading post owner didn't blink at Elena's belly or Caleb's haunted eyes. He just loaded their supplies, nails, hinges, canvas, dried meat, coffee, and took their money without comment. By the time they started back, the sky had turned the color of old bruises. We need to move, Caleb said, eyeing the clouds. That's not weather. That's a wall. Elena urged the mule faster, but the animal was old and stubborn, and pregnant women don't hurry well. By the time her cabin came into view, the first snowflakes were falling. Not gentle, but sideways, sharp as thrown glass. Caleb swung down, started unloading supplies with quick, efficient movements. You can't stay here tonight. This is my home. Elena, that roof won't hold, not against what's coming. He grabbed her arm, not rough, but urgent. Come to the line shack. It's solid. It's warm. You can come back when the storm breaks.
And if Granger comes while I'm gone? If he says I abandoned the claim?
He won't come in this weather. No one will.
You don't know that.
Elena pulled free, started hauling supplies inside.
I leave, I lose everything. I'm not giving him that satisfaction.
You're going to die of stubbornness.
Then I'll die on my own land.
Duchess appeared between them, solid as a wall. The mare planted herself in the cabin's doorway and refused to move when Elena tried to push past. When Caleb tried to lead her away, she pinned her ears and stopped. What the hell? Caleb stared at the horse. Duchess, move! The mare turned her head, looked at Caleb, then at Elena, then deliberately walked into the cabin and stood in the center of the single room like she'd claimed it.
I think she's saying we stay together, Elena said.
That's insane. She's a horse.
Tell her that.
The wind hit then, a freight train roar that rattled every board. Snow came in a white wall, erasing the world outside. Caleb swore, grabbed the last of the supplies, and slammed the door shut. Or tried to. The door hung crooked on new hinges, gaps showing around the frame. Help me seal this, he said. They worked fast, stuffing canvas into gaps, bracing the door with a timber. The temperature was already dropping, cold seeping through every crack. Elena fed wood to the fire while Caleb checked the roof supports, his face grim. What? Elena asked. Northwest corner, the beam I told you about. You never got that post in place.
I ran out of time.
We're going to pay for that. He pressed his hand to the beam, listening. It's already straining. The wind screamed. Snow built up on the roof with a sound like someone pouring sand. Duchess stood calm in the center of the room, unbothered, like storms were beneath her notice. Elena felt the first pain low in her back. Ignored it. Probably just tired from the ride. She'd been having aches for days. We need to move everything away from that corner, Caleb said. If it comes down... The beam cracked, not loud, but definite. A sound that meant breaking.
Now, Caleb said. They dragged Elena's bedroll, supplies, everything to the far side of the cabin. The fire crackled, wind howled, and Elena felt another pain, sharper this time, wrapping around from back to front. Not an ache, a contraction. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." "What's wrong?" "Nothing. I'm fine." But her hands went to her belly, pressing where the baby had dropped suddenly, heavily, in the last 2 days. Caleb saw. His face went white. "Elena, tell me that's not—" "It's nothing, just tired." "Don't lie to me." Another pain, stronger. Elena gasped, grabbed the table edge. Duchess made a low sound, moved closer. "How long?" Caleb's voice shook. "How long have you been having pains?" "Since this morning. But they were small. They were—" She broke off as another contraction hit, harder, forcing her to her knees. Caleb caught her, lowered her onto the bedroll. "This isn't happening. It's too early. You said 6 months." 7 now, but that's still—" Elena couldn't finish. Terror clawed up her throat. "It's too soon, Caleb. The baby's not ready." "How far apart are they?" "I don't know. 10 minutes? Maybe less?" Christ. Caleb stood, paced 3 steps, turned back. His hands were shaking. Okay, we need—" He stopped, breathing hard. "I can't do this." "What?" "I can't watch another woman," his voice cracked. "Sarah was early too, 7 months, and I couldn't help her. I couldn't—" He backed toward the door. "I need to get you to town, to a doctor." "In this storm? We'd die before we made it a mile." "Then what do I—" Caleb's face twisted. "I don't know what to do." Elena reached for his hand, gripped hard. "You stay here, with me. You don't run." "I'm not equipped for this. I don't—" "Neither am I!" The words came out sharp. "You think I planned this? You think I'm ready? I'm terrified, Caleb, but running doesn't change what's happening." Another contraction slammed through her. She cried out, couldn't help it. When it passed, Caleb was on his knees beside her, his face raw with fear and something else. The look of a man being forced to face the thing that destroyed him. "What do you need?" he asked, voice barely steady. "I need you here, present. Not 3 years ago, not in that other cabin. Here." He nodded, swallowed hard. "Okay, I'm here. Water, boil water, and those clean cloths in my pack." Caleb moved like a man underwater, but he moved. Got the pot over the fire, found the cloths Elena had been saving for— God, she'd been saving them for after the baby came, for cleaning and swaddling, not for this. Not for birth in a storm, in a half-finished cabin with only a broken cowboy and a wild horse for help. The contractions came faster. Every few minutes now, each one peaking higher, lasting longer. Elena tried to breathe through them the way her mother had described, long, slow breaths, but panic kept stealing the air from her lungs. "Talk to me," she gasped between pains. "Tell me something. Anything." Caleb knelt beside her, wringing out a cloth in warm water, pressing it to her forehead. "What do you want to know?" "Your wife. What was she like?" He froze. "Elena?" "Please, I need to think about something besides—" Another contraction cut her off. When she could speak again, her voice was thin. "Please." Caleb was quiet so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he said, "She laughed at everything, even things that weren't funny, especially those. She'd burn dinner and laugh. Horse would throw me and she'd laugh until she cried." His voice softened, remembering. "She made everything lighter. Made me lighter." "What happened? During the birth?" Elena, you don't need to hear. I need to know what to expect. His jaw worked. Labor started in the night. Fast. Too fast. She was bleeding before dawn, and I didn't know if that was normal. Didn't know what was normal and what was dying. He stopped, closed his eyes. By the time I got to town and back with the doctor, she was gone. Both of them. Just gone. I'm sorry. I'm the one who's sorry. You shouldn't have to do this with me. You deserve someone who knows what they're doing. I deserve someone who stays, Elena said. That's you. The roof groaned. They both looked up. Snow was piling thick, heavy, bending the beams. The northwest corner sagged visibly. It's going to come down, Caleb said. Then fix it.
I can't. Not from in here. Then go outside. I'm not leaving you. Caleb, if that roof falls, it'll kill all of us. Go! He looked torn, desperate. Then Duchess moved, walked to Elena, lowered her head until her muzzle touched Elena's shoulder. The mare's eyes were calm, steady, and impossibly sure. Caleb saw it too. She'll stay with you. She's a horse. She's more than that, and you know it. He grabbed his coat, pulled it on. I'll be fast. 5 minutes. Be careful. He was out the door before she could say more. Wind roared in, snow swirling. Then the door slammed shut, and Elena was alone with the horse, and the pain, and the fire that couldn't quite chase the cold. She counted contractions. 4, 5, each one worse than the last. Between them, she could hear Caleb outside, boots on the roof, hammer against wood, his voice swearing into the wind. 6 contractions. 7. The pain was changing, shifting lower, bearing down. Elena's breath came in short gasps. Caleb! No answer over the storm. Caleb! The door flew open. He stumbled in, covered in snow, bleeding from a cut above his eye. The beams braced. Should hold now. He saw her face. What's wrong? Something's wrong. The pressure. It's too much. Too fast. Caleb's hand shook as he checked her. His face went pale. You're bleeding. Not a lot, but... Is it normal? I don't know. With Sarah, it was... He caught himself. Doesn't matter. What matters is you. Another contraction, massive, forcing a scream from Elena's throat. When it passed, she was shaking, exhausted. I can't do this. I can't. Yes, you can. You don't know that. I know you built a cabin alone while 6 months pregnant. I know you didn't quit when your family abandoned you, or when a whole town judged you, or when Granger tried to steal your land. His voice was fierce. You don't quit, Elena. It's not in you. What if what if something's wrong? Then we handle it. He gripped her hand. Whatever comes, we handle it together. Duchess pressed against Elena's other side, warm and solid. Between the man and the horse, Elena felt held, anchored. She closed her eyes, gathered herself. Okay, she whispered. Okay. The next hour was pain unlike anything Elena had imagined. Each contraction built on the last until there was no break between them, just a constant wave of pressure and fire. Caleb stayed beside her, wiping her face, helping her breathe, talking her through when the pain got so bad she wanted to quit breathing entirely. I see the head, he said, voice tight. Elena, you're almost there. I can't push any more. One more, just one more. I can't. Outside, lightning split the sky. Impossible in a snowstorm, but there it was. White fire turning the world bright as noon. Thunder followed,
shaking the cabin walls. And in that moment of electric clarity, Elena found something she didn't know she had left.
She bore down, screaming, pushing with everything in her. The baby slid free into Caleb's shaking hands. For a terrible moment, nothing. No cry. No movement. Caleb stared at the tiny, blue-tinged infant, and Elena saw his face crumble. Saw him back in that other cabin, holding another baby that never took a breath. "No!" Elena sobbed. "No, please!" Then Caleb moved, cleared the baby's mouth with his finger, rubbed her back, firm and steady. "Come on," he whispered. "Come on, little one. Breathe." The baby gasped, sputtered, and then let out a wail that cut through the storm like salvation itself. Caleb laughed, a broken, beautiful sound, and wrapped the baby in clean cloth, placed her on Elena's chest. The infant was tiny, too tiny, skin wrinkled and red, but her cry was strong, and her eyes, when they opened, were dark and fierce. "You did it," Caleb said, tears on his face. "God, Elena, you did it." Elena couldn't speak, could only hold her daughter and weep and shake with exhaustion and relief, and the pure, overwhelming fact of this small, impossible life. Outside, Duchess called out, one long, clear note that sounded like triumph. The storm raged on, but inside the cabin, in the warm circle of firelight, 3 souls caught their breath. Caleb tied and cut the cord with steady hands, checked Elena for tears, brought her water when she could finally drink. "She's small," Elena whispered, studying her daughter's face. "She's strong. Listen to those lungs." The baby was crying less now, calming in her mother's warmth. Her tiny hand gripped Elena's finger with surprising strength. "What will you name her?" Caleb asked. Elena looked at him, this broken man who'd faced his worst nightmare and hadn't run, who'd helped her bring life into the world when death had taken everything from him before. "Hope," she said. "Her name is Hope." Caleb's face did something complicated. He touched the baby's head with one gentle finger. "Hope," he repeated. "That's perfect." They sat together as the storm hammered the walls they'd built. And for the first time since leaving San Antonio, Elena felt something she'd forgotten existed. She felt like maybe, possibly, everything might be okay. The storm broke 3 days later, leaving the world white and silent and new. Elena woke to Hope's soft cries and Caleb feeding the fire, moving quiet as a shadow so he wouldn't wake them. He'd been doing that, staying through the nights, sleeping in 2-hour stretches on the floor, while Elena and the baby took the bedroll. "You should go back to the line shack," Elena said, shifting Hope to nurse. "Your boss will wonder where you are." "Already sent word. Told them I'm weathered in." Caleb didn't look at her, kept his eyes on the fire. "You're still bleeding too much, and the baby's small. You need help." "I'm fine. You passed out yesterday when you tried to stand." "For a minute." "Elena." He finally turned, and his face was drawn with exhaustion and something deeper. "Let me help, just until you're stronger." She wanted to argue, wanted to prove she could do this alone, the way she'd done everything else. But Hope made a small sound against her chest, and Elena felt the weight of responsibility settle heavier than any log she'd lifted. "1 week," she said. "Then you go." Caleb nodded, but something in his eyes said he was already planning to stay longer. On the 4th day, Duchess brought company. Elena heard the hoofbeats first, multiple horses moving slow through the snow. She grabbed the rifle, heart racing, but Caleb put a hand on her arm. "Wait," he said, looking out through the gap in the door. "I know those horses." He opened the door. 4 riders sat in the clearing, bundled against the cold. One was a woman Elena didn't recognize, gray-haired and solid as oak. The others were men, weathered and quiet, the kind who measured words like gold. "Stone," the woman said.
Heard you were holed up here. Thought you might need supplies. Mrs. Chen. Caleb stepped out. You rode 40 miles in this? Horse came to my place 3 mornings running. Stood outside my barn and wouldn't leave until I followed. She looked at Duchess, who stood calm beside the cabin. Damnedest thing I ever saw. Mare led me straight here. One of the men dismounted, started unloading sacks from his pack horse. She came to us too, all of us, like she was gathering help. Elena came to the door, hope wrapped tight against her chest. The riders went still, staring. You had the baby, Mrs. Chen said. In the storm. Yes. Alone? I was here, Caleb said quietly. The silence that followed was complicated. Mrs. Chen's eyes moved from Caleb to Elena to the baby, and Elena braced herself for judgment, for whispers, for all the things she'd gotten used to. Instead, Mrs. Chen swung down from her horse and walked straight to Elena. Let me see her. Elena hesitated, then pulled the blanket back. Hope blinked up at the stranger, impossibly small, impossibly alive. Early? Mrs. Chen asked. 7 months. She's breathing well. Good color now. The older woman's voice softened. You did good, girl. Real good. Something in Elena's chest cracked. She hadn't realized how badly she needed someone to say that until she heard it. The riders stayed 2 hours, unloading supplies Elena couldn't pay for. Flour, salt pork, coffee, lamp oil, blankets. Mrs. Chen checked Elena over with practiced hands, nodded approval, then checked the baby with the same thoroughness. You keep that child warm and fed, she'll be fine, Mrs. Chen said. Premature doesn't mean doomed. Means she's a fighter. She looked at Elena hard. Like her mother. When they finally mounted to leave, one of the men, weathered face, kind eyes, turned back. That land agent, Granger. He's been spreading talk in town. Elena's stomach dropped. What kind of talk? Says you abandoned your claim during the storm. Says he's filing for forfeiture. That's a lie. I never left. We know, but the sheriff's coming to investigate. Probably within the week. The man glanced at Caleb. Might want to have your story straight. They rode out, following Duchess, who led them back the way they'd come. Elena watched them disappear into the white, feeling hope and dread fighting for space in her chest. He can't do this, she said. I've been here. I built this cabin. I had my baby here, for God's sake. Granger doesn't care about truth. He cares about winning. Caleb's jaw was tight. And right now, his word against yours? In front of a judge who's never met you? Then what do I do? We prove continuous occupation. We document every improvement. And we pray the sheriff's an honest man. That night, Elena couldn't sleep. She held hope and listened to the wind and thought about losing everything she'd fought for. About Granger taking this land, this cabin, this life she'd carved from nothing. Talk to me, Caleb said from his bedroll on the floor. I can hear you thinking from here. I left San Antonio to get away from men who thought they could control my life, Elena said. My father, who said I shamed him. The man who... She stopped. She'd never said it out loud, never named him. The father? Caleb asked gently. My father's business partner, married, 3 children. He said he loved me, said he'd leave his wife, all the things men say. Her voice went hard. Then I told him I was pregnant, and suddenly he didn't know me, threatened my family if I said anything. So I didn't. I ran instead. That took courage. Did it? Or was I just a coward who couldn't face the truth? You protected a man who didn't deserve it. That's not cowardice. That's... Caleb stopped, searching for words. That's a kind of strength I don't understand, but I respect the hell out of it. And now another man wants to take what's mine because he thinks I'm weak. Elena looked down at Hope, sleeping peaceful against her chest. I won't let him. I can't. You won't have to. Caleb sat up, his face serious in the firelight. We'll fight this together. Why? The question burst out of her. Why do you keep helping me? You don't owe me anything. Caleb was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was raw. 3 years ago, I lost everything. My wife, my son, my reason for living. I built that cabin thinking I was making a home, but all I made was a grave. He met her eyes. Then a wild horse dragged me here, to another pregnant woman, in another half-finished cabin. And I thought I'd go crazy from the memories. Thought I'd fail you the same way I failed Sarah. You didn't fail anyone. I failed her every day she was dying, and every day after when I should have died too, but didn't. His hands clenched. But then you had hope in that storm, and I didn't freeze. I didn't run. I helped bring life into this world instead of watching death take it. And for the first time in 3 years, I felt like maybe I could be something other than broken. Elena's throat went tight. Caleb, so that's why I'm helping you. Because you're giving me something I didn't know I could have again. He swallowed hard. A reason to wake up. A reason to try. Before Elena could respond, Hope started crying, hungry and insistent. The moment broke, but something had shifted between them, something that felt like the beginning of trust. The sheriff came 6 days after the storm broke. Elena heard the horses and felt her whole body go cold. She was nursing Hope when Caleb opened the door, his face grim. Sheriff Daniels, he said. And Granger. Elena's hands shook as she buttoned her shirt, settled Hope in the makeshift cradle Caleb had carved from a packing crate. She stepped outside, chin high despite the fear crawling up her spine. The sheriff was an older man, gray mustache, eyes that missed nothing. Granger sat beside him, smug as a cat with cream. Miss Rivera, the sheriff said, I'm here to investigate a claim of abandonment filed by Mr. Granger. I never abandoned anything. Granger leaned forward. You weren't here when I checked 3 days after the storm. Cabin was dark, no smoke, no signs of occupation. That's impossible. I've been here every single day since I filed the claim. Then where were your tracks? Where was your wood pile? The snow had drifted against the door, like no one had opened it in days. Elena's mind raced. The storm lasted 3 days. We were inside. We? The sheriff's eyebrows rose. He looked at Caleb. Stone, you've been staying here? Yes, sir. In what capacity? The question hung heavy. Elena saw what was happening, saw how it would look to a judge, to the town, to everyone. Unmarried woman, unmarried man, living together while she had a baby. The scandal would be worse than anything she'd fled in San Antonio. He helped me build the cabin, Elena said quickly. He's a neighbor, that's all. That right, Stone? Caleb's jaw worked. Yes, sir. Granger smiled. Convenient. A neighbor who arrives just in time to help with birth, stays for weeks, but claims no improper relationship. Forgive me if I find that hard to believe. Believe what you want, Elena snapped. I've met the homestead requirements. Continuous occupation, permanent structure, proof of improvement. This cabin proves it. This shack proves you're desperate. Granger dismounted, walked to the cabin, tested the door frame. Gaps in the walls, roof barely holding. No windows, no proper door, no well. This doesn't meet the standard for permanent improvement, Sheriff. This is temporary shelter, at best. That's not true, Elena's voice broke. I've worked every single day. Worked to build something that won't last the winter. Face facts, Miss Rivera. You're not equipped for this life. You've proven that by requiring a man's help to survive. Granger pulled papers from his coat. I'm prepared to offer $200 for the claim. More than fair, considering you'll lose it anyway.
Go to hell.
The sheriff cleared his throat. Language, miss.
I'm sorry, Sheriff, but this man is trying to steal my land.
I'm trying to save you from your own foolishness, Granger said. You had a baby alone in a storm. You could have died. The child could have died. Is that the life you want? Struggling to survive while your daughter grows up in poverty?
My daughter will grow up free. That's more than I had.
Free, Granger laughed. You're a prisoner to this land,
to this impossible dream that a woman alone can make it out here.
Let me save you the heartbreak and take it off your hands now. Over my dead body. That can be arranged, Granger said. Too quiet, too cold. Caleb stepped forward. You threatening her? I'm stating a fact. This land is hard. It kills people, especially people too stubborn to know when they're beaten. Granger turned to the sheriff. I'm filing for immediate forfeiture. Miss Rivera has failed to meet improvement standards, has required ongoing assistance from a man, not her husband, and cannot prove continuous occupation during the storm period. The sheriff looked uncomfortable. Miss Rivera, you got any witnesses? Anyone who can testify to your occupation? Elena's mind went blank with panic. Who? The only person who knew was Caleb, and they'd just claimed he was nothing more than a helpful neighbor. Mrs. Chen and the others had only arrived after the storm. Then she heard it. Hoofbeats.
Multiple horses, moving fast. Duchess appeared first, head high, leading a train of riders. Mrs. Chen, the three men from before, and behind them, a dozen more. Homesteaders, ranchers, people Elena had never met. They formed a semicircle around the clearing, solid and silent.
What's this? Granger demanded.
Mrs. Chen dismounted, handed the sheriff a paper. Signed statements from 14 witnesses. All testified to seeing smoke from this cabin during the storm. All testified to Miss Rivera's continuous presence on this land.
That's impossible. You can't see this cabin from
the ridge to the north you can, one of the men said. Been watching her smoke since she arrived. Checked it every day. Never stopped once.
Another rider spoke up. Horse came to me during the storm. Led me here to check. Found Miss Rivera and Stone both inside, working. Baby had just been born.
I brought firewood after the storm broke, another said. She was here. Baby was crying.
No question of abandonment. Granger's face went red.
These people are lying.
14 witnesses? The sheriff looked skeptical. All lying? That's a heavy accusation, Granger.
She put them up to it, paid them somehow.
With what? Mrs. Chen's voice was iron. She's got nothing but what she's built with her own hands. Unlike some, who profit off other people's desperation. The sheriff studied the papers, then looked at the cabin, then at Elena. Miss Rivera, you got anything else to prove occupation? Elena's mind raced. What could she show? What proof did she have that couldn't be dismissed or... Hope cried from inside the cabin. The sheriff's expression shifted. That the baby?
Yes, sir.
Born here? During the storm?
Yes, sir. Caleb Stone delivered her when I couldn't get to town.
The sheriff looked at Caleb, and something in his face changed. Recognition, maybe, or respect. That true, Stone? Every word.
And you've been staying here since? To help with the child?
To make sure they survive. Yes, sir.
Nothing improper?
Caleb met the sheriff's eyes, steady and sure. I slept on the floor. I respected her home and her person. My only interest was keeping them alive. The sheriff nodded slowly. Then he turned to Granger. I'm denying your forfeiture claim. Miss Rivera has met the burden of proof. This is outrageous! She's— Careful, Granger. The sheriff's voice went cold. These folks have evidence you've been filing fraudulent claims all year, targeting homesteaders who can't defend themselves, pushing them off land they've earned legally. That's fraud. And fraud's a crime I take seriously. Granger's mouth worked, but no sound came out. I'm recommending the Territorial Office investigate every claim you filed in the last 12 months, the sheriff continued. And I'm advising Miss Rivera that she's within her rights to file charges for harassment and attempted theft of legal property. Elena felt her knees go weak. My claim stands? Your claim stands, miss, and it'll stay standing as long as you keep improving it. The sheriff tipped his hat. Congratulations on the baby. She's a lucky child to have a mother who fights like you do. He rode off. Granger followed, throwing looks back that promised this wasn't over. But Elena barely saw him. She was surrounded by neighbors she didn't know she had, all of them nodding and smiling and congratulating her. Mrs. Chen gripped her shoulder. You need anything, you send word. We homesteaders watch out for each other. When they finally left, Elena stood in the clearing with Caleb, holding Hope, feeling like the world had shifted under her feet. They came, she whispered. All of them. Because of the horse. Because of you, Caleb corrected. Duchess just showed them where to look. Elena turned to him, this man who'd stayed when he could have run, who'd faced his worst fear to help her, who'd defended her to the sheriff without asking for anything in return. Thank you, she said, for everything. Caleb looked at her for a long moment. You're welcome. And Elena, that week you gave me, it's up tomorrow. Her heart dropped. I know. So I should probably tell you. He stopped, looked at the cabin, at the land, at Hope sleeping in Elena's arms. I should probably tell you, I don't want to leave. What? I'm not asking for anything, not expecting anything. He struggled for words. This feels like home, more than any place has since Sarah died. And if you'd let me, I'd like to stay, help you finish the cabin properly, make sure you and Hope have what you need. Caleb, I know what people will say. I know it'll look like, but I don't care anymore. Let them talk. I'd rather be here, helping you build something good, than alone in that lined shack pretending I'm still alive. Elena felt tears on her face. Are you sure? I've never been more sure of anything. Hope stirred, opened her eyes, looked up at both of them. And in that moment, standing in the clearing they'd fought to keep, Elena made a choice. Then stay, she said. Stay and help me build. Not just the cabin. All of it. Caleb smiled, truly smiled, for the first time since she'd known him. Yeah? Yeah. Duchess walked up to them then, placed her head between their shoulders, and made a sound that could only be called satisfied. Spring came slowly, the way hope does when you've learned not to trust it. Snow melted in patches, revealing mud and dead grass and the promise of green underneath. Elena stood in the doorway holding Hope, watching Caleb work on something near the tree line. What are you building? She called. He didn't turn around. You'll see. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting. Hope gurgled against her shoulder, and Elena smiled despite herself. The baby was stronger now, filling out, her cries loud enough to wake the dead. At 2 months old, she'd survived the worst winter Montana could throw at them, and that felt like its own kind of miracle. Duchess grazed nearby, never far from the cabin. The mare had stayed through everything, the storms, the birth, the sheriff's visit. She'd become part of their small family, though neither Elena nor Caleb spoke about it in those terms. Family implied permanence, and permanence was something neither of them quite believed in yet. Elena went inside, laid Hope in her cradle, and started mixing bread dough. Her hands moved automatic now, muscle memory built over months of survival. The cabin felt different these days, warmer. Not just from the fire Caleb kept burning, but from something harder to name. She heard his boots on the porch, the sound of him stomping mud off before entering. Little courtesies that spoke of a man who planned to stay. "You never answered my question," Elena said without turning around. "Which one?" "What happens when spring really comes? When the line shack needs you back?" Silence. Then Caleb's voice, careful. "I quit that job 2 weeks ago." Elena's hands stilled in the dough. "What?" "Sent word to the ranch. Told them I wouldn't be coming back." "Why would you do that?" "Because I'm needed here more." Elena turned to face him. "Caleb, you can't just... We never talked about..." "I know." He met her eyes. "And maybe I should have asked first. But I'm asking now. Can I stay? Not as a neighbor helping out, as..." He stopped, searching for words. "As whatever you'll let me be." Hope chose that moment to cry. Elena went to her, picked her up, used the baby as a shield while her mind raced. What was he asking? What did she want him to be asking? "People already talk," she said finally. "Mrs. Patterson in town, half the county. They think we're..." "I know what they think." "And you don't care?" "I care about you, and Hope. What strangers think," he shrugged. "Learned a long time ago that judgment doesn't keep you warm at night. Doesn't put food on the table. Doesn't matter worth a damn." Elena looked down at Hope, who'd stopped crying and was staring up at her with dark, knowing eyes. "What are we doing here, Caleb?" "Building a life, if you'll have me in it." "As what?" The question hung between them. Caleb crossed to the window, looked out at the land they'd fought to keep. "I loved Sarah. Loved her so much losing her nearly killed me. For 3 years I thought that was it. Thought I'd used up my chance at happiness and the rest was just waiting to die. And now? Now I think maybe..." His voice caught. "Maybe people get more than one chance, if they're brave enough to take it. I'm not brave. I ran from everything I knew." "You ran towards something better. That's the bravest thing I know." He turned back to her. "You want to know what I was building out there? It's a room. Addition to the cabin. Proper bedroom, so Hope doesn't have to sleep in a crate, and you don't have to share space with a man who snores." Elena's throat went tight. "When did you start that?" "Week after the sheriff came. Figured if I was staying, we'd need the space." "You were that sure I'd say yes?" "I was that sure I had to try." Hope grabbed Elena's finger, squeezed tight. The baby's grip was stronger every day, her determination to hold on something she'd clearly inherited. "There's something I need to tell you," Elena said. "About Hope's father." Caleb's expression didn't change. "You don't owe me that." "I think I do. If this is..." She took a breath. "His name was Richard Morrison. My father's partner in the shipping business. Married 20 years, 3 sons. He said he loved me, and I believed him, because I was young and stupid and wanted to believe someone saw me as more than just Diego Rivera's daughter. You weren't stupid. I was stupid enough to think he'd leave his wife. Stupid enough to think love meant anything against money and reputation." Her voice hardened. "When I told him I was pregnant, he gave me $200 and said if I ever spoke his name, he'd destroy my father's business and blame me for seducing him. Make sure everyone knew the pregnant whore who'd tried to break up a good Christian family." Caleb's hands clenched. "I want to kill him." "So did I. But what would that solve? His sons would lose their father, his wife would be shamed, and I'd be a murderer instead of just a scandal. She looked at Hope. So I took his money, kept his secret, and ran. Let my family think I was protecting some boy who abandoned me, instead of a man who deserved to be exposed.
That's why you left San Antonio. That's why I left everything. Because staying meant either destroying innocent people or living with everyone knowing I was the woman who... She stopped. Even now, the words stuck. The woman who what? Got used by a man with power? That's on him, Elena, not you. Tell that to my mother, to Mrs. Patterson, to every person who looks at me and sees sin instead of... Her voice broke. Caleb crossed to her, slow and deliberate, giving her time to move away. When she didn't, he put his hand over hers where it rested on Hope's back. I see a woman who chose her child over comfort, who built a home from nothing, who survived things that would have broken most people. His voice dropped. I see someone worth staying for. Elena looked up at him through tears. I don't know how to do this, how to trust someone again. Neither do I. We'll figure it out together. What if we can't? What if I'm too damaged, or you're too broken, or... Then we'll be damaged and broken together. Still beats being alone. Hope made a sound between them, and they both looked down at her. The baby's eyes were bright, alert, taking in everything. She reached one tiny hand toward Caleb's face. He froze. Can I? Yes. Caleb took Hope carefully, like she was made of glass. The baby settled against his chest, content, and something in his expression cracked open. She's getting so big. She likes you. I like her too. He touched Hope's hand, let her grip his finger. Never thought I'd hold another baby. Thought that part of my life was over. Maybe it doesn't have to be. The words surprised Elena as much as they surprised him. Caleb's eyes met hers, wide and uncertain, and full of something that looked like hope. Before either of them could speak, Duchess whinnied outside, sharp, urgent, wrong. Caleb handed Hope back, reached for the rifle. Stay inside. He was out the door before Elena could argue. She heard voices, male, unfamiliar. Her heart kicked hard. She put Hope in the cradle, grabbed her grandfather's rifle, and went to the door. 3 men sat on horses at the edge of the clearing. Not Granger. These men were rougher, harder, the kind who got paid to do things sheriffs didn't ask about. Help you? Caleb's voice was level, but his rifle was raised. The lead rider smiled, showing gaps in his teeth. Looking for Miss Rivera. Got a message from Mr. Morrison in San Antonio. Elena's blood went cold. She stepped out, rifle in hand. I'm Elena Rivera. Mr. Morrison wants you to know he's thinking of you, hoping you and the child are well. The man's smile widened. He also wants you to know that scandal travels. Word of a Mexican woman with a bastard child, living unwed with a cowboy. That's the kind of story people love to tell. What does he want? Wants to make sure you remember your agreement. Keep his name out of your mouth, and he keeps his money in his pocket. Start talking, and well, the man shrugged. Accidents happen. Cabins burn. People disappear. The frontier's a dangerous place for a woman alone. She's not alone, Caleb said. That right? You her husband? Caleb's jaw tightened. I'm the man who'll put a bullet in you if you don't get off this property. The rider laughed. Easy, cowboy. Just delivering a message. Miss Rivera understands, don't you, miss? Keep quiet. Keep safe. Start talking, and everyone you care about pays the price. They rode off, leaving Elena shaking with rage and fear. Who's Morrison? Caleb asked. Hope's father. He must have heard somehow, must have... Elena's mind raced.
He's scared I'll talk. Scared the truth will come out now that I have people who might listen. Will you talk? Elena looked at the cabin, at the land, at everything she'd built. Thought about Hope inside, innocent and perfect. Thought about Caleb standing beside her, ready to fight. No, she said, because he's right. If I expose him, he'll destroy everything. He has the money, the power, the connections. I have... She gestured at the rough cabin, the muddy clearing. I have this, and I won't risk losing it for revenge. That's not justice. Justice is a luxury I can't afford. Elena lowered her rifle. I just want to be left alone, to raise my daughter in peace. If keeping his secret buys me that, then I'll keep it. Caleb looked like he wanted to argue. Instead, he said, then we make this place strong enough that threats don't matter. We build walls so thick no one can break through. How? We get married. Elena's breath caught. What? You heard me. We make it legal, make it real. Give Hope my name, give you the protection of being a married woman. Then Morrison can threaten all he wants, but he's threatening a man's wife and child. That's different than a woman alone.
Caleb, you can't just... We don't...
I know we don't love each other. Not yet, anyway. His voice steadied. But we respect each other. We work well together. We're already building a life. Why not make it official?
Because marriage should be about love.
Should be. But sometimes it's about survival. About giving children stable homes, and women protection, and men a reason to be better than they are. He stepped closer. I'm not asking you to love me, Elena. I'm asking you to let me stand with you. In the eyes of the law. In the eyes of God. In front of everyone who wants to tear you down. Let me be your husband, and I'll spend the rest of my life earning the right to call you my wife. Elena stared at him, this broken man offering her something she'd never thought she'd want. Marriage had destroyed her mother's spirit, trapped her in a life of appearances and expectations. Marriage to Morrison would have been a cage. But marriage to Caleb? I need to think about it, she said.
Take all the time you need. I'm not going anywhere.
That night, Elena couldn't sleep. She held Hope and watched the fire and thought about choices. About protection and practicality, and the difference between marrying for survival and marrying for love. In the morning, she found Caleb working on the addition. He'd made real progress. Walls framed, floor laid, roof beams ready to go up.
When did you start this? She asked.
After the storm broke. Been working on it every day.
You never said anything.
Figured you had enough to worry about. He set down his hammer. You thought about what I asked?
I have.
And? Elena took a breath.
I'll marry you,
but on conditions. Name them.
First, we sleep separate, at least unless things change between us.
Agreed.
Second, Hope keeps the name Rivera, at least for now. She's all I have left of who I was, and I need her to carry that.
Caleb's face tightened, but he nodded. Okay.
Third, if this ever feels like a mistake, you tell me. You don't just stay out of obligation. We end it honest.
I can promise you that. But Elena, he met her eyes. It won't be a mistake. I'm more sure of this than I've been of anything since Sarah died.
How can you be sure?
Because for 3 years I woke up wishing I hadn't, and now I wake up grateful for another day with you and Hope. That's not obligation. That's... He stopped, searching for words. That's something I didn't think I'd feel again. Elena felt her defenses cracking.
When?
When what? When do you want to do this? Get married? Today, tomorrow, whenever you're ready. There's no preacher out here. Mrs. Chen's husband is ordained. Marries homesteaders all the time when they can't get to town. Caleb's voice was steady. I can ride for them today. We could do it tomorrow if you want.
That fast?
Elena, I've been ready since the night you had hope in that storm, and I realized I'd do anything to keep you both safe. He took her hand. If you need time, I'll wait. But if you're sure, then why wait? She thought about Morrison's men, about threats in the dark, about all the ways the world tried to break women who dared to choose themselves. Then she thought about this man in front of her, offering protection without demanding payment, partnership without requiring surrender. Okay, she whispered. Tomorrow. Caleb smiled, and it transformed his face. Yeah? Yeah. He rode out within the hour. Elena spent the day in a strange fog, cleaning the cabin, mending her one good dress, trying to make herself believe this was real. Hope seemed to sense something, fussing more than usual, until Elena picked her up and carried her outside. Duchess was waiting, like she always was. The mare walked up to Elena, pressed her nose to Hope's tiny hand. The baby laughed, her first real laugh, and grabbed at the horse's muzzle. You knew, didn't you? Elena said to the mare. You knew we needed each other before we did. Duchess blew out a breath, patient and knowing. Elena rested her free hand on the horse's neck, felt the solid warmth of her. Thank you, she whispered, for bringing him to me, for not giving up when I wanted to be alone, for, her voice broke, for saving us. The mare's eyes were calm and deep and impossibly understanding. She stayed still while Elena cried into her mane, while Hope laughed and grabbed at her ears. While the sun moved across the sky and threw long shadows across the clearing, they all called home. Caleb returned at dusk with Mrs. Chen and her husband, a quiet man with kind eyes. They'd brought witnesses, 4 neighbors Elena had met only once, but who rode 40 miles to stand with them anyway. The ceremony was simple. Elena wore her mended dress. Caleb wore a clean shirt he'd borrowed from Mr. Chen. They stood in front of the cabin they'd built together, Hope in Elena's arms, Duchess watching from 10 feet away. Do you, Caleb Stone, take this woman? I do. Caleb didn't wait for the rest. I take her as my wife, in sickness and health, in poverty and wealth, until death takes me from her side. Mr. Chen blinked. Well, that's... Yes. And do you, Elena Rivera, take this man? I do. Elena's voice was steady. I take him as my husband, my partner, my... She looked at Caleb, saw his eyes bright with tears. My family. Then, by the power vested in me by the territory of Montana, I pronounce you husband and wife. Mrs. Chen whooped. The neighbors clapped. And Duchess reared up on her hind legs, whinnied loud enough to shake the sky, then came down and trotted circles around them all, like she was drawing a boundary nothing could cross. That night, after the neighbors left, after Hope was asleep in her cradle, Elena and Caleb stood outside looking at the stars.
You okay? Caleb asked.
I married a man I met 3 months ago. Having regrets already? No. She surprised herself with how true it was. No regrets. Good, because I have something to show you. He led her to the addition he'd been building. In the moonlight, she could see it was almost finished. Walls tight, roof solid, floor smooth. He lit a lantern inside, and Elena saw what he'd carved into the main beam. Elena Rivera, February 7th, 1886. That's the day the sheriff came, she said. The day I almost lost everything. It's the day I decided to stay. The day I knew... He stopped. I carved your name here then, Elena. Before I asked. Before I knew if you'd say yes. Because I'd already chosen you. Already chosen this. Elena traced the letters with her fingers. You were that sure? I was that desperate for a reason to believe in something again. He took her hand. And you gave me that. You and hope. This life we're building. It's not what I planned.
Not what I thought I deserved, but it's... His voice broke. It's everything.
Elena turned to face him. In 3 months, she'd built a cabin, had a baby, fought off a land thief, and married a man who'd been a stranger. Every choice had felt impossible in the moment. But standing here now, looking at Caleb's face in the lamplight, she felt something she hadn't felt since leaving San Antonio. She felt like she'd come home. Thank you, she said, for staying, for helping, for... She reached up, touched his face. For seeing me. Thank you for letting me. They stood like that, not kissing, not embracing, just being present with each other. Outside, Duchess settled down near the porch, her breathing slow and even. Above, stars wheeled across the Montana sky, indifferent and eternal.
And inside the cabin, Hope slept in the cradle her father had carved, dreaming dreams only babies know, held safe by walls built from love and desperation and the stubborn refusal to give up when the whole world said quit. In the morning, Elena woke to find Caleb already outside, working on the roof of the addition. She dressed, fed Hope, and joined him. Hand me that beam, he said. Together, they lifted it, settled it into place, the final piece that made the structure whole. What do we call this place? Caleb asked, climbing down. Every homestead needs a name. Elena looked at the cabin, the land, the horse grazing in morning light, thought about everything they'd survived, everything they'd built, everything they'd become. Hope's Landing, she said, because that's what it is. The place where hope landed, where we landed, where we stopped running and started building. Caleb nodded slowly. Hope's Landing. I like that. They stood together in their clearing, on their land, under their roof, and looked toward a future neither of them had planned, but both of them chose. Behind them, Duchess watched with knowing eyes, the bridge that had brought two broken souls together and refused to let them stay apart. Sometimes the ones who save us come on 4 legs with hearts bigger than reason. And sometimes being alone is just the space before you find your people, build your home, and discover that family isn't what you're born into, but what you're brave enough to create.